Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Simmer, and I have been doing this judging thing for about 4 years. Was that when you had it? 4 or 5 years? We had the last training. Yeah, back there was one of my trainers. The way they developed judging in the camera console is, picking individuals and bringing us together and trying to train us how to judge pictures. All of us who do it have a fair amount of experience, some a lot more than others, but my experience with photography has been, I have a lifelong interest in photography. My dad was a professional photographer. Stuff that until I started taking this seriously, I didn't know what I knew until I started learning it over again. So, oh yeah, my dad used to talk about that. So, but it's been about 13 years that I've been since I retired from my career as a forester with the Department of Natural Resources in Minnesota. Then I saw photography as a great way to keep myself out in nature and go to the places that I knew how to go to and that I knew about, and then try to just brought that to other people. So that's how I got into this thing. And so since it is late and I don't want to keep you here all night, my customarily, one of the things that I try to do is keep the comments brief. And so the goal is to spend less than 1 minute per picture. And so I sometimes feel like my comments are what I call brutally short. And you've heard me say this if you were here the last time I was doing judging here. And but what I do also is that I write down all of the comments, and Jill has a copy of the spreadsheet with all of my comments. And if anybody ever wants, well, you can watch it on Zoom, but if you ever wanted to see what I said about a particular picture, the abbreviated version of the comments is available for anybody in the club to look at after the fact. So a little bit about what I look for, my judging philosophy, if you will. I think because all of us are a little different, but the bottom line, it's all about our opinion, and it's hopefully an informed opinion and with some reasons behind it. But I am a member of the St. Paul Camera Club, and I submit photos to our salons. And a fair bit of the time I look at what the judge says about my entry and go, what? So I expect you can do that too. I'm just looking at the pictures from a kind of a distance and seeing, first of all, what the story is. I mean, to me, it's, does this picture tell a story without me knowing anything about it? Does it have any kind of a wow or an aha moment? Does it evoke a thought or an emotion? And, then is there some interaction? I was just talking to this fellow right here about, the difference between in nature, is the animal just sitting there, or is it doing something? Is it involved, engaged with its environment? Is it engaged with the photographer? Is there eye contact? All of those things come into play. And, I got all these pictures and trying to sort them out, from the tens down to I didn't generally don't go below 7, because in this club, thankfully, I was told there is no limit on how many acceptances you can give, because if I had to hold it to a 35% acceptances, I'd quit. I'd go do something else for this. This is a very high quality club, and the images are very high quality. So I think I wound up with about somewhere around 3/4 of them have acceptances. And the ones that don't generally are very good pictures, but there was some kind of a flaw or distraction that if it was fixed, it would also be a very high quality picture. So, and those are the kinds of things I love to point out, because sometimes, I myself, when I'm processing images, I kind of fall in love with my own picture, and I don't see that bright spot, or I don't see it until I get it printed and I get the test print back. I go send all my stuff to White House Custom Color and I get the print back and it's like, what the heck? That's the spotlight right there in the middle of the picture. I didn't notice that. Well, then, I take care of it and send it back again. So, I'm trying to see when I see somebody else's picture, I'm a little more disinterested in hopefully picking that out. But, one of the other things is the principle here is that the subject is the center of interest, but the focal point is the area of highest contrast. And so the things that I'm actually seeing most is, first of all, the cropping is, what's included in the picture that brings the attention on the subject. And then what's distracting from it? When I look at it, where's the light pulling my eye? And if I know the subject is here, I keep looking over there because there's a bright area there. All you have to do is burn it in a little bit, the burning and dodging, and it changes the whole picture. And so, those are things I'll talk about. Creative presentations are always fun, and artistry and a fresh idea, a fresh way of looking at something. And so, so there are things like what I would call fatal flaws. I think we all agree with that. Is it, exposure problems, incorrect shutter speed, blown highlights. I mean, that's just like not allowed at all. And the other one, lost shadows. And so if you have a black area and there's no detail whatsoever in it, you've lost part of that image. Sharpness, critical features not sharp or soft overall, composition, use of space, balance. And so, those are kind of the things on my list as I go through. And so with that, I'm going to stop talking about myself and we'll go through these pictures. Did she put scores up? No. That comes later. It does. Okay, so I don't have.
First, and then we read the names afterward.
Okay.
Give the score though.
I can give the score, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this I scored a 9. And because this is an action moment, the bird is sitting there and singing a song. You can just tell that bird there's a light mood there. And if the light is very good on the bird and the background is subdued, the only thing that I question is that bottom branch seems like the picture might be just a little bit tighter without that. And, if it was cropped up just a little bit, you might lose a little touch off the tail. But, and I don't take these things into Lightroom and fool with them or anything, but I do kind of put my hand on the screen and, just kind of see if my thought makes any sense. And so that would be the only thing I could say about it. Other than that, it's just a great picture. Okay, the badger. And, actually this, the light on this isn't all that's great. It's kind of like full sunlight in the day and the shadows are a little harsh. But I give it an 8 because there's good eye contact. And badgers don't just sit for pictures. If you've ever been around them, they're very shy. They will scoot into their hole or just get the heck out of there, or if you're too close, drive and run you off. But and overall, if I look at it, I thought it was maybe just slightly underexposed because it's just a little bit, I don't know, kind of on the bit dull. But other than that, there's a lot of good material there, but it's still definitely an acceptance. Okay, this curb plunk, yeah. This is just a fun, creative idea. Very well executed. And, this, when you think about it, this kind of stuff can take a long time to get it right. How many times drop these fruits into this thing to get the splash just right and the timing and everything else. And the light is great. The subjects are light and you're bright and you've got that background that's a geometric background. That is a 10. I should give the score for this actually. Okay, suitors. Now this is an interesting picture. I did give it a 7 because I thought it was an action moment. It's a good composition. But and actually, as I stand back here, I thought the depth of field could be just a little better because I think that the subject, the action is on that female, and it's pretty out of focus. I understand that was the intent, but I also, beyond that, the background is quite bright behind the female. And so even if that background was a little darker, it would bring a little more attention onto the female. But like I said, that's one of those things they can be easily changed. And if you're the photographer, try it out and fool around with it and see if you like it. And if you don't, then you're good. Okay, this is another one that I gave a 7 because I think that there's oh man, that doesn't look. Am I looking at that? It looks much better on this screen, or is it because of the angle? That looks pretty harsh on that screen. So yeah, they look really nice over here. Called Black Beach, yes, right outside of Silver Bay. And I think it's a very nice composition with a standout subject. You got that one little tree there and a nice arrangement of rocks. I thought the foreground rocks were awfully bright though. And to me, they're kind of competing with the subject. And so again, a great opportunity to make a couple of changes, moving the light around. Okay, this is Emerald Tanager. It's a 9. I love the eye contact. It's tack sharp. And that stance is a little amusing. It has, when we look at animals, what they call anthropomorphize. You're kind of projecting your human feelings into what you're seeing with the animal. And that one just looks like kind of the crabby old guy that's saying, "Get off my lawn." There's kind of a challenging stance there. And to me, that really made it an amusing and interesting picture. I think I was looking at 2 different pictures here, and I know this is because I see it here and then I see it here, and this is the picture I saw on my screen. And I gave it an 8 because I thought it was rather underexposed and could use a little more light, especially on the bird. But that doesn't look like the same picture, but I'm going to have to score by what I saw on the screen. It's a really interesting composition. I love the light on the leaves, and then below the tail of the hummingbird, there's kind of an interesting mood going on there, and it creates some anticipation, I thought. And the bird, I thought, was still very dark, especially around the head. And I don't think you're seeing what I'm seeing, but it was like there was nothing. You couldn't see the eye really, and the eye is really important to be able to see that. So I thought I needed a little help. And I thought raising the shadows on the bird, nothing drastic, would just, bring it up a level or 2. Griffin, ready to pounce. I gave it an 8, but I thought that it's a really good moment of action. And I think the straight on angle of view works, but it takes a second to sort it out a little. And I also thought that there was a visible vignette, which, I guess I would prefer not to see that. You can vignette, but when it becomes like it's really obvious, then it becomes a bit of a distraction. And the ground is quite bright. This was kind of pulling me past the subject, the eye, and to the background. So again, a little moving the light around, and you've got a picture that's hopefully better. And so, and again, my opinion, okay. star of the show. I scored this a 9. And these lovely glowing flowers really do suggest stars. And the bug is extremely sharp and very interesting. And at a nice angle and positioned in the frame. The only thing I saw was that to the right of the bug, there's a kind of a white spot at the base of where all the little branchlets come together. I darken that just a little bit just to kind of get it out of the way because I keep finding myself looking at it. But man, other than that, what a wonderful picture. Riverstone Path. There's a lot of great material here and a wonderful composition, but I feel that it's just too dark. The light is needs some help. And there again, you're not looking at, if I'm just a second, is this really that different? And it really is. Okay, well. Yeah, this looks like what I saw on my computer. This maybe is adjusted to be brighter or something because it's not quite the same. But there's a great leading line on the rocks here. It's a beautiful scene, and probably could crop to show a little less sky. Usually a flat blue sky doesn't do you much good, and really the interest is in the rocks and the line that goes up the river. So that it's dark enough that there's detail lost in some areas. And so I think, again, adjusting the light, it's not a 7 in terms of composition and subject. It's just, I think it needs a little help, and it should easily be another just higher. Mirrored reflection. Again, a 7 because I think of exposure. And see, that looks like it's blown out here. This is very, very much in the shade. Yeah, you might want to, for the future meetings, if there's that much different, maybe adjust that thing. It's a really nice composition. I love the patterns in the water and the fact that it's dappled with the green and black. But it is definitely underexposed. And I'd say just try brightening, especially to bring out the white in the flower, because I think when you have white in a photo, you want the whites to be white. And this is just kind of falls short of that. And so it stands out, but you have to kind of, I felt like there was a little more, just a little more light. Okay, Sunny Days Monarch, an 8. This is a really nice catch with this monarch. A good composition, and to place the flower off center, that's a good artistic choice. The bright leaf in the background on the lower left of the flower is a bit of a distraction. I think that could be darkened and dealt with. Other than that, it's really, that would be the only critique I could offer there, is that one little distraction kind of keeps it from being a completely clean image, but very nicely done. Wood chipper. Now this picture has some problems, but I gave it an 8 anyway, because how often are you going to get a picture like this? It's a good action moment, and it's an illustrating. If you look a little closer, you can see the nictitating eye membrane, and I think everybody in this room knows what that is, right? Because you're all nature photographers. The bird is quite close to the top of the frame, and the bright sun is washing out the colors on the bird some. But you wouldn't have to change anything, but maybe just bring that light a little bit more so that it's a little more even on the bird, and you'd have that up another notch or two also. Okay, I can do this. The owl's foot is just letting go of the branch, not a moment too soon to catch this one. And you got eye contact, the owl looking right at you. I gave it a 9, by the way, and I think it's an easy 10 if the background was just a little better controlled. That is, it's high key background, I guess is what you would call it, but it may also be blown. And I know that would be a heartbreaker, and I don't know what you can do. I mean, things you could do to fix that a little bit, but as it is, it looks like, and it's, you know, it's still a 9 in my opinion, but if you want to be if you're going for the 10, that background could be a little problematic. Okay, tricolored heron in flight. And there's a nice picture of the heron. It's I gave it a 7 though, because again, it needs a little help. I think the good wingspread and the side view is wonderful. It's a little bit less sharp than some of the other bird pictures I've seen, and you wouldn't probably even notice that uh, from a distance. But as I kind of get up close sometimes, because I think it's actually, and I see all of those fine feathers in there, because that's sometimes the difference. But actually, the plain white background, and it's actually, I think, taking up more space than it needs to. You could bring that in a little bit on that bird, and so much white and still uh, have a nice picture. Okay, loon family with bonding. Wonderful mood here between the two loons and the position of their beaks and the background. I gave it an 8 for a reason. It is, everything works here. I love the light right between the birds. It's keeping the eye right in the middle. And I think it would be a 10 if those chicks didn't have their backs to the camera. And so, and you don't get to control that all the time, but you know, you can see that there's a couple of chicks there, but you really want to have a profile or an eye showing or part of a head to push it all the way to a 10. Time, a 9. Really nice. I love the visible bullhead in the beak. Sometimes I look at that and I think, really, they eat fish that are that big? Big? I mean, you think of like pelicans eating fish that big. But anyway, I think in the background, I would suggest lowering the highlights on the areas of water that are behind the bird, because the bird is kind of in the shadow. And, you know, there's a lot of ability, especially when we're shooting it raw, to bring down some of those highlights and kind of put the bird a little more front forward. But it's still a 9. I mean, if you want to make it the 10, you know, then that's the only thing. Sometimes I'm thinking, what little thing can I pick on here to that I see? But the story on this one and the sharpness of everything else kind of overrides, you know, any minor concerns. Okay, Wyandotte Falls. This I scored a 7 because although it is a beautiful falls, it's well exposed. I think the photo is trying to show a little too much. The rocks in the foreground with the little yellow speckles are great, but then there's the background, and there's stuff behind the trees behind. You know, either maybe show fewer rocks or show fewer trees, but really get that nice flow of water that comes from the falls and down along the side of the picture. And that's really the essence of the story. And I think tightening it up a little bit would really make it really increase the impact. Team Redux, that's the next one. Oh, all of my button pushes now have caught up. So let's go back. I'm sitting there repeatedly pushing on it, and it was getting every one of them. There we go. Okay. Okay, this is I gave this a 7 because although it's interesting duck behavior, usually you see them sitting on top of the waves. But the trailing duck is not quite sharp, and it's the wave is kind of blurring his head a little bit. And I think, you know, you can have a little less water around them, but you know, it's a fun image, but didn't quite make it in terms of some of the interest level that I would have liked. Okay, kill deer with lunch. I call this a reluctant 7 because it would be higher with a better JPEG. The digital artifacts are pretty obvious in this version. If you look at the screen, I'm seeing, not just the sharpening, but noise and just a little lack of detail in spots. It looks like either it was put through some sharpening or it's just maybe too compressed. And I admit we're looking at compressed images here and some say there's anything wrong with the picture. It's just that the image that I saw didn't come up to the standard of some of the all morning at Oxbow Bend. And I reluctantly gave this one a 7 too, because I think it could be a 10 with just a little bit of cropping and management. It's a beautiful scene. All the elements are there. There's a bright blue band in the water in the reflection that I think is probably, where the picture should end. Because you've got the mountain in shadows, the shoreline in kind of low light. There's a nice low sky on that. And then this bright blue, and then another band of gray underneath that. And so kind of bringing it up a little closer to shore so that you keep all the reflection of the mountains and the forest, and maybe even cut in a little bit from right, because those trees are taking up a lot of space over there. And just tighten it up a little bit. I think it's easily a 10, but I just found that light distracting, and it kept bringing. I think the mountain is what you want people to really spend their time looking at and to see first, and so I'd recommend going that route. Sage grouse, a 9 on this one. It's a fine pose. It's a detailed photo of a grouse, and it's what do you call it? Amazing. It's amazing glory. I guess a picky suggestion I had though was ideally you might want a little more room in front of the bird standing still, so it's probably not that critical. But on the other neck, on the upper neck, some of those whites are really close to losing detail. And I think maybe a lowering highlights on that bring out a little more of the detail, which is really what makes that whole thing so interesting. But a great picture nevertheless. Okay, Torque Waterfall, a 9. And, I would say almost perfect. The only thing that I didn't like about it was that bright spot in the upper right. The water in that upper corner is right on the edge of the picture, and you really don't want white and bright stuff up against the edge of the picture. So I think that can be dark, and you can do a little burning and just kind of dim that down so that it's not like a spotlight bringing you out of the picture and letting you stay in and just kind of look at all that other cool stuff that's going on there. Raindrop reflections. Another opportunity here, because I gave it a 7 because I looked in close to that one raindrop. All the flowers that are behind there, they're upside down and backwards, but every single one of them is in focus. So there's like a mini world inside there, but you really can't see much of it when you're looking at this much photo. If there's a way to crop that in and make it bigger in the frame, it would become just a fascinating photograph. And talk about your flat blue sky and flat blue water. What do you do with that? Well, you minimize it. And so I think this is a great choice here I gave it a 9. It's an exceptional view of the Tetons. The calm water and the blue sky are challenging, but the photographer made it work with the pano. And the only concern I had is that pano is almost a 5:1, which is pretty long. I think if you look at the mountains on the right, they kind of flatten out on that side. And I know if the goal is to include all of them, you just have to leave them. But if it was me, I'd take a little bit and bring it down to a 4:1 and omit some of the stuff off the deck, because all of the Jags, and you had Mount Moran here in the middle and the Grand Teton over on the left. And that's really the stuff that, we're really the interest is. Valley of Tears. I gave this an 8. Again, I think it needs a little light work, but it's an exceptional scene. However, the light I thought was fairly flat. And the water stream in the lower right, I think that could be cropped right off to bring more attention to the main water streams that are further up and make them a little bigger in the frame. And, brushing in maybe some highlights in those falls, because like I said, the whole light is because it was a cloudy day. You really have to maybe increase the contrast, I guess you'd say. But those falls look like they could be a little more eye-popping with just a few more highlights in them. Still a very nice picture, but with an exceptional location. I haven't been to Iceland yet. Hopefully someday. Uh-oh, I just did it again. Now I'm gone. Okay. All right. Gathering Monarchs. An 8, it should be a 10. And, because this is a rare find of a beautiful moment. And to catch that one monarch coming in with the light on it. And the thing that I looked at as I was looking at it, imagining it on a print, is that much of that scene on that tree branch is in deep, deep shadow. And so it's not a problem so much on a computer screen, but I did bring this one in and put a histogram on it because I wanted to see if it really is darker to look at my screen, and it is. I think it would just benefit from some lightening and easily a potential 10. I mean, this is just, to me, it's an award-winning picture, but that it's a little more balanced will be even better. Okay, African gray hornbill. This is a 9, and I love the habitat context because it's an interesting bird, but that's an interesting plant that it's a tree that it's sitting in too. That's something that, if you're from here, you won't see that around here. An interesting angle on the bird with the face turned backwards. I thought the face and the eye were a little bit dark, but still a wonderful portrait. And I love how the tree was incorporated into the picture to show that habitat. First in color. This is an 8 and could, I think, be a much higher 2 with, again, some light work. Creative concept, good focus, good depth of field control. And the thing is that the stamens, which is the little black, okay, you can see that up there. When I looked at it, it's awfully bright behind them. And since they're not fully out of the flower and separated, I think the white above them and the red behind them, pink behind them, if they were a little darker, it would really pop that center of interest just a little bit more. And taking flight, gave this an 8 because it's an expressive form and it's a good action moment. The water, unfortunately, is kind of dull and brown. And so, maybe a crop that reduces that bright edge at the bottom and shows a little less water, because that brown water is, the little riffles are kind of nice, but they're not really adding much to the picture. So the bigger that bird can be in the frame, the more energy and impact it's going to have. Okay, Tiny Emerald. I gave this an 8. The Hummer is sharp and well exposed, not easy to get those. And it's a good setting with the flowers. I think the bright area above the bird and the bright flowers below the bird could be darkened a little bit, and it would have been an easy 9 or a 10, and it still is. I just felt that with that spot behind the bird, I brightness pulling my eye away from that beautiful subject. Okay, angry egret. This is a 10. Lots of display going on here. It's sharp. The mouth is poised to strike. It's just well done all the way around. And there you talk about not having too much water around the bird. That's really all you need. And still the same dappled water, and it's kind of a little on the brownish, but you just don't notice because you got a lot of power going on here in that subject. Wild turkey portrait, in all of its ugliness, I gave this a 9. I think it's just a handsome portrait. It's the background is smooth. There's no distraction, and the colors are vibrant and sharp. You can see every detail on that thing, and it's shows that you don't have to have the whole bird. That's just a nice clean headshot full of color, and showing the bird the way people rarely see it, giving you a close-up that you don't normally get from those things. Okay, Lady Ruby, this is a 10. I thought this was a perfect moment. The background, the light, the sharpness, and the mood all worked for me, and that the flowers and the whole thing moves at a diagonal into the frame. And there are water droplets on that flower, which adds a little bit of interest. And so just, well done all the way around. Well, okay, we have a little R-rated action moment here going on in their courtship display. But, and I gave it an 8. It fills the frame, but there again, this white background thing, which is very, very bright. I don't think it really adds much to it. There are no distractions for sure, except for the brightness of the background. But I think even that a little bit darker so that it's not brighter than the birds will be an improvement. Great blue heron in flight. Now here's talking about another bird in flight. I gave this a 10 because again, proof that the entire bird is not needed. The close-up impact really magnifies the action, and you can just see how that bird's neck is tucked to reduce the aerodynamic drag, and the eye is sharp. Everything is tack sharp, and its concentration is intense. But you see the bird. Thistles are beautiful. I gave it an 8. Nice detail and light. It's not a matched set. That's good. One is in bloom, one is not. So it's showing you different aspects. And, it's not a high impact picture, but it's a pleasant and well done picture of the thistles. Somebody tell me what homage to Hemingway means in connection with this falls. I didn't, well, maybe it was Hemingway Falls, I don't know. At any rate, it's a good point of view on the scene. I gave it an 8. The bright background, though, the trees up there, the orange in the back is kind of pulling my eye right through the falls and into those trees. So I consider darkening that background and then maybe slightly brightening the foreground, but not too much because that green is visible. It's kind of a moody green and it gets me up to the falls. But one way or the other, I think that the brightness in the background isn't helping. Yellow jelly fungi. I gave this a 7. It's a good composition and exposure. I was really trying hard to like these amorphous blobs of fungus, and it just didn't really hold my interest. So, my prejudice kind of came into play there. And, if there had been maybe a little more of a geometric thing that would have played a game with me or something, I would have liked it better. But there's nothing technically wrong with it. And wood duck taking off, and this was a heartbreaker. I had to give it a 7 because even though it's an explosive, high impact moment, there are digital sharpening impacts or artifacts, I would say, that were distracting, and particularly the tip of the beak. There are some little little fibrous feathers that are actually kind of integrated into the beak. So if it was sharpened, the sharpening algorithm took some of the beak and put some of the feathers in there. And so I couldn't let that go. But man, if there was a way to reprocess that and clean up that artifact, it's a wonderful bad shot. And that is all. And you're on time, less than.
Let's quickly read the
Okay,
tours.
out of your way.
Badger, Michael Sweet. Hummingbird at Last Light, Joe Fierst. Ruppels, Griffin Ready to Pounce, Jonathan Metzger. Sunny Days Monarch, Rosalind Long. Wood Chipper, John Lemire. Moon Family Bonding, Richard Getz. Valley of Tears Iceland, Carl Biggenshoe. Gathering Monarchs at Dusk, Joe Fierst. Immersed in Color, Janan Karataken. Taking Flight, Todd Bolson. Tiny Emerald, Ruth Becker. Tree Swallows in Courtship Display, D. Hennesette Dritz. Thistles Are Beautiful, Will Rogers. Homage to Hemingway, Don Wendell. The Nines. Golden Winged Warbler by Paul Kamen. Emerald Tanager, Carl Biggenshoe. Star of the Show, Janan Karataken. I Can Do This, Michael Greiner. Supper Time, Will Rogers. Greater Sage Grouse, Michael Sweet. Pork Waterfall, Mark Ye. Jackson Lake Tetons, Barry Mullen. African Gray Hornbill, Jonathan Metzger. Wild Turkey Portrait, John Lemire. And the Tens. Kerplunk by Mark Ye. Angry Egret, Rosalind Long. Lady Ruby, Michael Greiner. Great Blue Heron in Flight, Richard Getz. And good night and drive safe. It's
How
fun.
does that at all fit the critics category, which is supposed to be modified nature?
Yeah, that's not.
It's not modified nature, it's nature that
Go
has
back
a.
and read the original.
Right.
The human element.
Voting. Yeah, I mean, or. 10% nature, fruit, medicine.
Fruit and water and nature.
Yeah, but I mean, domestic.
It's just the container that's.
Yeah, but I mean, you disallowed domestic flowers. So can we include fruit dividing the domestic?
Yeah.